Don't miss our how to paint red robe tutorial. Spiky bits. What's going on, hobby maniacs? I'm Baer, and today I'm going to show you how to paint some really good looking flowing red robes on your miniatures. Now, custodies seem to be all the rage right now. Now, not all of them have some flowing red robes, I suppose, on them, but learning how to paint flowing red robes over a large surface area is a really good skill to put in your hobby toolkit. Now, there's a couple different ways to do it. You can add in some darker colors, some stuff like some sanguines and things from P3, or you can just stick in the Citadel wheelhouse and just working up from Wazdaka and Wild Rider and Mephistons and things like that. I went a little hard in the paint on this one. I worked it up. I used some burnt umbers. You're gonna notice that there's some gotchas, and that's what I like about my videos is sometimes I'm not too worried about getting it 100% right, but I'm going to show you the mistakes I make along the way so that you don't make the same mistakes and you learn, we all learn together sometimes, how to not duplicate those mistakes on your next project. So let's take a look. So here he is, the limited edition, or I guess show only Ixion Hale miniature from Forge World, and this is the cape we're going to be painting. This is a fantastic way to showcase how to paint reds here. It's a flowing cape that goes down over some steps, but it's also up in the crotchal region up in here as well. So first step is we're going to bust out our sanguine base and base coat all of the cloak areas right there, just to get a good base coat and not mess anything up that doesn't need to get overspray on it with the airbrush. So about 2 seconds into this project, I realized I had made a terrible mistake. So while sanguine base and burnt umbers are great for going over dark colors, they are terrible for going over light colors, which you can see right here. That's the 3 light coats in. But I switched up to MEPHISTON red, and MEPHISTON red is doing the Lord's work. You can see right there, that's 1 coat of MEPHISTON red. So this isn't exactly going to be the red I was looking for. We're gonna work up from MEPHISTON through Wild Rider up through Troll Slayer in 50-50 mixes because there's so much area here. But now we're on a different track, and that's just the way projects go. Hindsight being what it is, maybe I should have just primed this with black and then worked up the golds with Army Painter metals, but that's just part of learning and learning what works and what doesn't work. And clearly this did not work, so we're option selecting first step into the project over to some MEPHISTON red. There it is, nice solid base coat, all brush work. Took about 10 minutes to go in and do, but say what you will about G-Dub's paints, but they definitely coat when they need to. Got in there, got it all done. Well, there's a little spot right there, but we'll fix that up. So now we're ready to move on. So now this is going to bring up an interesting kind of technique, because now we're going to go back and we're going to shade the recesses because we're kind of already too light. So we're going to have to cut it back some with a different color. So now we've loaded up our airbrush with a little bit of burnt umber. I'm just using the Model Air version. You can see it right there. Just burnt umber, super easy. Very standard paint in the Vallejo world, or actually really in the art world, to be quite honest. We're just gonna get in here, we're just gonna cut back, do little cutbacks in the creases, and then work it up from MEPHISTON like we should have in the first place, but we just didn't have that good stick. So this is kind of a little bit of reverse engineering, but it's not that bad, to be quite honest. So I'm just gonna lock it in and just hit up these crevices right here with a nice dark color. Seems like there's something. There we go. All right, so let's just get in here at an interesting angle. Do something like this. Some down in here. Doesn't have to be super precise, but just creating some false depth down in there. Something like that. Very simple. And I think, I don't know, I might get this little spot. This one little spot right there. And I think that's probably, we'll get right here. So now we're just gonna come in, we're gonna mix in MEPHISTON and just bring it on up from there now that we have our depth. One more spot. This is all weathering to taste, I suppose, right there. So there it is. We hit all of those little spots. We want to hit a little bit right down there too. But now we're gonna work it up from MEPHISTON, I swear. Now we are. And now we got some MEPHISTON red in the pot. We're actually using the red paint, airbrush paint right there. And now we're just gonna start working up all of the tops of the angles here. Starting with areas like right here. And just kind of getting all the corners, the edges, everything like that. We're just gonna go through and work it up, leaving as much of the burnt umber in the cracks that we can. And then we're gonna come back and start fading it. It's a very simple process. I actually missed that one spot of gold right there. Oh my gosh, I can't believe it, I'm the worst. I'm gonna go fix that right now because that's gonna bug me. So we're just gonna go through, hit all these high edges right here. It's gonna tighten up that burnt umber, and then we're gonna start adding in new paints and making the shade. And there it is. So all faded in, all on the tops, and then next up we're gonna add a little bit of Wazdaka, I think, and I even got in there on that edge right there. Over here on these folds, so that's starting to look nice and faded, and we're gonna build it up from there and really start making it pop with some Wazdaka. So I might have lied again real quick. We're not using Wazdaka, we're actually using Wild Rider mixed in 50-50 with our MEPHISTON mix. I just left it in. It was a little too watery, so I mixed in a little, it was kind of a thick paint. So now we got this kind of like middle in the road amalgamation of two different, an airbrush paint and a layer paint, which is kind of funny. But you can see right there, I've already hit it. The fade is looking good on that corner. So here's how we're gonna do it. We're just getting in here, blowing a little air, and then letting her rip and just hitting the edges that we need, aiming towards the middle and the bottom of those folds right there. And remember, this is a little bit watery, so we can hit it with a little air if it gets away from us, and boom. And then of course, if you get a little drop somewhere, like right there, you can kind of see, just get in there with a brush and pull it back a little bit of water, and boom, instant fade too. So double duty right there on that cut. So now I'm just gonna go through and I'm gonna hit all of the higher edges here, just aiming at the tops and the middles, and not particularly any other spot there, because we need to leave one more pass for just straight Wild Rider. So here is the work all done here up underneath. We got all sorts of good looking fades, and now it's time to just do straight Wild Rider and aiming even more tighter and tighter on the edges and up those flaps right there for these robes. Now I've grabbed my Wild Rider here, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to test it out. I'm going to test it out right underneath here, just to make sure that we got the good color and we're not getting any splatters or anything. And that's what's really cool about, there you can see it's coming out perfect. I'm going to give it a little air just to see how it fades in, and I'm happy with that. So a lot of times you can find a place on your model that isn't going to be visible and test out your mix and everything like that. So let's see what we can do on this corner. Just gonna bring it up ever so slightly. And there it is, nice brighter fade. I'm gonna try to go up that fold right there. Something like that. And it's fading in pretty good because I'm working my way up in 50-50 increments. So we're getting a nice, not only are we getting a fade from the airbrush, but we're getting a nice color transition, which you can clearly see on that leading fold as to the rest of the folds right there. So we're just gonna go in, we're gonna nug it out, do the rest of the work, aiming towards the tips and the tops of all of the folds around back. And we're done with that one, and you can see it turned out great. We got all sorts of sweet shades all up in these folds here underneath, that even down in here we were able to pull that one off. So it's looking great. I'm gonna hit this with some lusterless spray so we don't lose any of that great airbrushing work, and then it's time to get to the detail work using your paintbrush. And now that the matte coat or the lusterless has completely dried, it's all about going in and hitting all the edges with some Troll Slayer orange. So we're gonna grab our liner brush. We got a very, very thin liner brush right here. And we're just gonna go in, perpendicularly hit all of the spots we possibly can with this brush. Now we do have to come back and do the gold, but we're gonna have to do that very carefully, of course. Not a big deal, just be very careful. And you can see instantly there's contrast right there. We hit this edge right here, and you want to make sure that you keep your paints thinned down, of course. Just twisting it as we go, making sure we're staying 100% perpendicular. That one got away from. Keep a little bit of moisture on the tip of your finger in case you get something a little out of control. And I think, for the most part, that worked great. I'm just gonna go through and nug out the rest right now, but as you can see, it's creating an amazing contrast from that dark umber all the way out to the flared edges that are in pure orange. And about 10 to 15 minutes later, you should finish up all of your hyper highlights around this crisp edges. Now, fortunately, there was a lot of folds here, which don't do well with crisp edges, but I picked out what I could in the cracks right there, and then we got all of these nice edges on the back, and then got into the folds right here, and especially that one right tucked inside of there. So we will have to go in and do all the golds in a few minutes, but for now this cape is looking fresh. We got all of our airbrushing done, so all the overspray can be corrected, base coated, and then we're going to do a wash with probably a flesh tone to dull down this crazy bright gold, but it'll still be super bright when we're done with it. But that's a tutorial for another day. We are done with these robes. I think they turned out great, and that's an awesome alternate red paint scheme that wasn't very hard to do. It's just concentrating, getting in there and nugging it out. If you like our unboxings and video features, make sure you subscribe to this channel. Support us on Patreon to get a shipment of miniature swag delivered to your door monthly, and head on over to thelongwar.net. That's the home of the battle reports for exclusive content, early access videos, and more. Become a veteran of the Long War today.